ocean in a tiny ship with her image in my mind and her name on my lips. I said, America. In this video, we are on a quest to uncover who really discovered America. Now, hopefully we all know that the Native Americans were the first people to occupy the Americas, having migrated from Asia to North America across the Bering Land Bridge during the last ice age. So what we are really asking in this video is who was the first non-native person to set foot in the Americas. For generations, history books credited this man, Christopher Columbus, with the discovery of America. In elementary school, we memorized the saying, "In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue." But Columbus, he looks so sad in this picture. Let's cheer him up a little bit. Let's make him happy. Let's give him some good news. Because Columbus would be happy to learn that he is the person that most people think discovered America. Well, after the Native Americans, of course. And Columbus would want you to think that he was the #1 guy. But I always add a second verse to this saying, and it goes like this. Just one thing we can't forget. Somebody else may have beat him to it. And that is our challenge in this video, to determine what person or groups of people may have beaten Columbus to the New World. And we're going to start by examining the case that the Vikings really discovered America, around 500 years before Columbus. So who exactly were these Vikings? The Vikings were seafaring explorers, warriors, and merchants. They were originally from Norway, so that's why they're called Norse people. Most people think the Vikings wore horned helmets in battle, but this is a myth. Think about it for a second. If you were going into battle, why would you add horns to your helmet? It would just make your helmet heavier and an easier target to knock off. This is a bad idea, and that is why archaeologists have never discovered Viking helmets with horns. Sorry, Vikings fans, but if I'm ever made commissioner of the NFL, in order to make your helmets more historically accurate, I'm going to rip those horns off your helmet. Now, the history of Viking exploration was captured in the sagas. The sagas were oral stories passed down from generation to generation of Vikings. So the sagas, it's kind of like a game of telephone. Now, the most famous saga involved a Viking named Eric the Red. When Eric was a child, he and his family were living in Norway. Unfortunately for Eric, his father killed a man. His family was banished from Norway, so they set sail west to Iceland. Eric apparently did not learn a lesson from his father, because when he grew up, he also murdered someone. As punishment, Eric's family was forced to sail further west, to a land more icy than Iceland. Eric named this place Greenland in order to trick people into moving there. Now, according to the sagas, in 982, another Viking named Bjarni Herjolfsson set sail from Iceland, heading west towards Greenland. As he was sailing, he encountered a massive storm that steered him off course. Herjolfsson had accidentally discovered an unknown land. But Bjarni was a bit of a coward, and he did not get out of his boat. This should be a lesson to you. If you want to be known in history, always get out of the boat. To think we were that close to celebrating Bjarni Herjolfsson Day instead of Columbus Day. But instead, Bjarni returned to Greenland to tell Eric the Red and his son, appropriately named Leif Erikson, about his discovery. The two men were interested, and they prepared an expedition. But according to the legend, Eric the Red fell off his horse on the way to the boat. He saw this as a bad omen, so he told his son Leif to go on without him. According to the saga, Leif and his team explored this newfound land, which later became known, appropriately, as Newfoundland. In one area, the Vikings found grapevines, so they named the place Vinland. They eventually returned to Greenland, and the story of the Vikings' journeys in Vinland was passed down through generations of oral Viking storytelling. Eventually, in the 1300s, the sagas were finally written down. Now, most of you have probably played the game Telephone, so you can hopefully understand why historians initially doubted the accuracy of this story. So for hundreds of years, the story of the Vikings' journeys in Vinland were just a historical footnote. And it was during this time that the legend of Columbus's discovery of the Americas grew larger and larger. That all changed in 1960 when Norwegian archaeologists Helge and Anne Ingstad met a Canadian fisherman named George Decker in L'Anse Aux Meadows on the northern tip of Newfoundland. George told them about some unusual grass mounds that were the shape of Viking longhouses. When the Ingstads started digging, they discovered items that were unique to the Vikings: a soapstone oil lamp, a whetstone, and probably most importantly, a bronze clothespin. These items were dated to 1000 CE, and they are unique to the Vikings. So most historians are now convinced that this evidence conclusively establishes that the Vikings briefly settled in the Americas around 1000 CE. So that answers the question, right, of who really discovered America? We now know that Leif Erikson and the Vikings really discovered America 500 years before Columbus. But not so fast. The beautiful thing about history is that it is never completely written. This is the main reason why your history textbook unfortunately keeps getting bigger and bigger. New discoveries are found every day, shedding fresh light on our understanding of the events of the past. And there are a number of other theories that I want to mention briefly involving other groups claiming to beat Columbus to the New World. The first is the theory that the Chinese reached America in 1421. Now, what evidence is there to support this theory? According to Chinese history, an admiral named Xing He set sail from China with over 300 boats heading west. The Chinese were the world's leading mariners and shipbuilders in the 15th century, and you can see just how big the Chinese boats were compared to the ones Columbus reached America with. Here's another picture of the large Chinese junk boats, and this is what one of them would have looked like in real life. Now here is a map from 1450, and it may take you a while to figure out what this is a map of, but if you turn the map upside down, you would notice that it was a world map upside down. It shows the continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa. And at the bottom of this map, or excuse me, at the top of the map, where South Africa would be, there's a story about Chinese boats that were sailing in this area around 1520. So the question then that was raised was, if the Chinese had made it all the way to eastern and southern Africa, did they make the rest of the journey all the way to the Americas? Now recently another Chinese map was discovered purporting to be from 1418. This map clearly shows the location of the 6 continents, including North and South America. If real and dated correctly, this map would be persuasive evidence that the Chinese sailors reached America before Columbus. However, the authenticity of this map has been questioned by many historians. A second theory is that the Polynesians really discovered America around the same time as the Vikings in 1000 CE. Polynesia is a chain of islands in the Pacific Ocean. By dating artifacts on these islands, historians know that the Polynesians reached New Zealand, the Easter Islands, and the Hawaiian Islands by boat, sometime around 12,000 CE. Now keep in mind, these were very small islands in the middle of a vast ocean. The people living on these islands were advanced, as evidenced by the massive sculptures that were built on Easter Island sometime between 11,000 and 15,000 CE. But did the Polynesians reach the Americas before Columbus? Archaeologists who believe they did point to similarities between canoes and fish hooks used by the Native Americans and the Polynesian people. Finally, research has been conducted on some chicken bones recently found in Chile. DNA extracted from these bones match a breed originally from Polynesia. More importantly, these bones dated to approximately 13,000 to 14,000 CE, suggesting Polynesian migration to the Americas before Columbus. The final theory we are going to examine takes us all the way back to the end of the last ice age. Some archaeologists believe that hunters migrated across glaciers, not only from Asia in the west, but also from Europe in the east. Archaeologists have named these people the Solutreans. The evidence supporting this theory are similar stone tools found in both northern France and in the eastern United States. Now, I encourage you to do your own research on these theories, to examine the evidence, and to decide for yourself who really discovered America. Now, at this point, you may be asking yourself, if all of these groups made it to the Americas before Columbus, why is he so important? Why do we still have to memorize and know the year 1492? And we'll take up those questions in the next video on Spanish exploration of the Americas. Thanks for watching.